I know a woman who signed her name the same all her adult life, through college and 20 years of marriage, until the day she signed her divorce papers. On that day, instead of inking out the usual signature, she added a flower to it. The first letter of her name spontaneously sprouted a daisy. She told me that since that day, she's never signed the same signature twice. Sometimes it features flowers, sometimes hearts or a butterfly or two. Her signature isn't a thing of habit. It's not a static artifact of her identity, she says, but a living thing, ever-changing, sprung free. Welcome. I'm Todd Boss. In this podcast, I help strangers discover the poetry in their most intimate stories. In this episode, Joan.
Hey, Todd. My name is Joan, and I think there's a poem in my life.
Joan left a voicemail on our listener line.
I'll start by saying that I was born in 1955.
She had a lot to say.
I sang my first solo when I was 5 years old, and I started playing piano by ear at age 5.
She called back twice.
Hi, this is Joan, part 2. I feel a little ridiculous that I'm going on too long.
Mostly Joan was giving me her resume. She'd gone to Berklee School of Music and worked with the prestigious Juilliard School. She'd worked at Morgan Stanley, one of the world's biggest financial services firms, gone on multiple meditation retreats to ashrams in India. And it's all very impressive. But what made me want to talk to her, and I guess what impressed me the most, was the quaver I heard in her voice when she mentioned one particular detail.
In 1988, I became pregnant. And this is difficult, but in 1989 and 1990, I had 3 sons that were born prematurely in the second trimester. These devastating losses pretty much shifted my whole life focus.
Hearing Joan's voice, you get the sense that she's lived a lot of lives and gained a lot of perspective.
I've been through a lot. I've been a lot. I am a lot. I'm just a woman traveling the path of life. If you're interested, my phone number is 631.
I just wanted to hear more. I called Joan at her home on Long Island.
Hello?
Hi, Joan. How are you?
I'm good.
Is this a good time?
Yes.
Joan seems eager to be here.
Joan, thanks for your detailed voice message in 3 parts. I appreciated all that background.
Wait, did you think it was funny when I said, this is Joan, part 3?
Yeah, that was great. You know that you're the one that taught me that my guest line is only 5 minutes long. I didn't know that before you came along.
Joan has the slightly squirrely demeanor of a 4th grade girl with a sneaky secret. She listens intently, but when she speaks, she rocks back and forth a little bit and smiles almost conspiratorially, like a loner at a school dance who's grateful to have someone to talk to.
I couldn't believe that my life was interesting. I mean, you think, oh, I've had a life, and then for someone to say, yeah, I actually think, and then I thought, well, everyone's life, there's probably a poem in everyone's life.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Even though Joan had left me 15 minutes of voicemail, she wanted to start off by telling me about something she'd forgotten to mention.
I was in an Amtrak train wreck.
Oh, my goodness.
In 1987.
Wow.
My husband was doing a show in Baltimore, and I went down for the weekend to visit him. On the way back, my husband said, go to the front of the train. There's always seats in the front of the train. So I got on the train, and I started to go up towards the front, and it was like this wall came down. And I just stopped and I looked down and there was a seat right there. So I took that seat. I didn't go further.
Wow.
And we were just outside of Baltimore. We didn't make it very far north. And all of a sudden, like out the window, there was, the train was shaking and there was all this fire. And at first I thought, where am I? Like, am I at a movie? Like, what is this?
It was the biggest disaster in Amtrak history.
The final death toll was 16, including the Amtrak engineer. More than 170 others were injured, many of them trapped in the wreckage until rescue workers could reach them. It was a non-stop effort.
The car had sort of slightly tilted, so we couldn't really get out these windows. And so we had to climb up and then out of the train and then over.
The accident site was a scene of confusion, carnage, destruction.
And basically just hundreds of people coming out of the train, standing in other people's backyard, you know, and they were coming out from their houses.
When the wreckage was cleared away and the facts began to emerge, the engineer of the Conrail locomotive faced serious criminal charges.
So what had happened and how the accident happened was my train was northbound and there was a southbound train, Conrail train coming.
The Conrail locomotive crew failed to stop at the signals before Gunpow interlocking, about 18 miles northeast of Baltimore.
And the engineer on the Conrail train was high.
He was supposed to pull his engines onto a siding and wait, but he just kept going.
He smashed right into us at like 120 miles an hour. And the first 4 cars of the Amtrak train were totaled, and I was in the 5th car.
Wow.
I wasn't injured, though. I mean, I remember smashing into the seat, and my glasses kind of went into I had some bruising here just from that. That was it.
Joan had called it a wall, something telling her not to go any further forward on the train.
Did you feel any sense of foreboding around it, or was it just a mandate?
It was like divine intervention. I was really being told, you're not going any further. It was a mandate. It was, you're sitting here. Forget that your husband told you to go to the front of the train. And that was his first thought when he heard about the accident. Oh my God, I told her to go to the front of the train. I hope, as usual, she doesn't listen to me.
Wow.
Joan laughs a lot, and it's a whole body thing. She kind of seizes up. She goes breathless. She reels back like she's gasping, but she's not gasping. She's just kind of caught. It's silent, like a still frame, and then she comes popping forward, wiping tears away, into a series of squeaks, like a mouse, just totally out of control. Totally infectious. And then she'll say, "Oh, God."
Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't listen to him. Thank God.
It's great. I mean, this was 1987. It was a long time ago now, but it's still great to hear you laugh about it. I wonder how soon afterwards you were able to take that lighthearted approach.
You know, it's interesting because that preceded my 3 miscarriages. So it was 4 years in a row, really, that I had this significant trauma.
Yeah.
And it woke me up to the reality of childbearing. And I never had a clue
Wow.
that could even happen. I thought you just got pregnant and then 9 months later, voila, you had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And see, the thing about those losses was that it was second trimester, which it's a lot different than a first trimester, not emotionally or psychologically, but physically, it's very different. Mm. I had to deliver the baby. It's fully formed. It's a miniature baby.
Wow.
And I just had a thought about that. At the very same time frame, my husband's brother and his wife were having babies. Guess what they had? Guess what they had?
Oh, no.
3 boys.
No.
Yeah. So that's why I say resilience. Like, I could have killed somebody.
Wow, adding insult to injury, and it's not their fault, is it?
No. But, you know, instead of railing against the universe, I went to India to go further inside. You know, there's a thing called joyful acceptance. Am I there? Did I ever really get that? I don't know. But that was the, I have to be getting something out of this. This is not just happening for no reason.
After all this, it wasn't until Joan's 4th pregnancy that doctors figured out what was going on, something called cervical insufficiency.
So he said, I know what the problem is. You can have a baby, recover from this, get pregnant, come back. And we did.
Wow. I can't imagine that headspace. And it must have been a lot to overcome, to trust that your body could be managed differently.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that I didn't fully bond with my daughter when I was pregnant with her because I was afraid to lose that again.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never said that out loud, actually, but sometimes I wonder, I don't think I allowed myself to fully bond with that pregnancy.
Who could blame you?
Exactly. I don't blame myself. That was what was happening.
How many kids have you got now?
I have 2 daughters. Grace was born in 91 and Amalia was born in 93.
What do they know about all of this? Everything?
Yeah, I told them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have a little remember box that has some memorabilia of the sonogram of the boys, not all of them, because they didn't really do all of that back then. I even have a footprint of one of them from the delivery. I have a blanket that they were brought home in. Yeah. And I realized that there's a couple of pictures of me and my husband from that time. And I'm standing just slightly behind him in both of them. And my body's not faced. It's kind of like this. And that's when I started to lose my self-confidence, self-esteem, believing in myself because of that inability to control what had happened to my body.
Joan and her husband moved to Long Island in 1992.
I didn't plan on being a teacher. I was a performer. I was a vocalist. But by this time, we had had our first daughter, and I had to do something for benefits and stability financially. So I did that.
As her daughters grew up, Joan realized how much she missed performing. She decided to get back in the game and auditioned for her dream choir.
I auditioned, I got in, I was so happy. This is going to be it for me. I'm going to retire and they only do 2 concerts a year. It's a limited commitment, but oh, so satisfying, gratifying. I got my head into the music. I practiced every day. And then my voice gave out.
Joan noticed her voice changing in about 2016.
Next thing I know, I'm leaving rehearsals. I told the conductor, I don't think I can, I'll see you next week. Something's wrong.
She went to voice therapy to figure out what that something was.
I was told my vocal cords were flattening. They're like atrophied because they're still there, but they're not functioning properly.
Joan uses the word atrophy, which calls to mind something that's fallen out of use. It means to waste away, from Greek roots for undernourished. And it's a confusing word choice because Joan nourished her voice. She used it plenty. It's almost like by using that word, she's blaming herself or blaming her body for a loss that simply couldn't be helped.
I mean, really, since 2017, I tried voice therapy, homeopathy, acupuncture, anything.
She even had surgery on her vocal cords. Nothing worked. Her singing voice was just dead.
And I still have hope. I still think that the next thing I try is going to fix my voice. And then some days I don't care.
Everyone's body, everyone's voice has an expiration date to some extent. Time cracks all voices. You can't sing the high notes all your life. I asked Joan if she understood that.
That thought never entered my awareness, that there would be an expiration date. And there were so many plans for when I retired, like the music that I write, I could record it myself. But now I can't do that. So it just lives in my head or on paper or wait for someone to perform it. And if I try to sing, I don't even try. It's horrible.
I wonder if you're hearing it like I did, the connection between Joan's loss of her boys and the loss of her voice.
I have to say, in a lot of ways, it's a worse loss than my 3 boys.
Joan bites her lip as if she'd caught herself saying something wrong or shameful.
Yeah. Because with my voice, that's more of the loss of an identity. And because I owned it, I had that. That was my thing. My self-identity has always been, I'm a vocalist, I'm a singer. Sang my first solo when I was 5. That was me.
Yeah. Your voice gave you a lifetime of joy.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And then you had to say goodbye.
And not by my choice. It wasn't like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on composing and I'm not going to sing anymore. I feel like the whole thing to write this music and get out there was like desperation. I have to identify with something because that's not available to me.
Did you ever lose a faculty that was central to your livelihood or your sense of identity? Like Beethoven famously losing his hearing, or like a chef losing her sense of taste, it's hard to imagine the depth of grief that would accompany such a loss. A loss that's directly related to your deepest passion. How long would it take you to recover from losing the asset you hold most dear?
Some days, I just try to say, well, it's okay, find something else. You have many gifts. And then some days it's like, I just don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
But I never give in to that. I never spend the day in bed.
Something keeps you going.
Yeah.
What are the things, Joan, that keep you going?
I think my meditation, that's the first thing I do every morning. So I find that space, and that's bigger than identifying with my voice. The identifying with my voice is, I'm kind of evolving with the whole thing. It's a process. It's a huge loss. It's just a giant hole.
Yeah.
Joan says she derives a lot of strength from her mother.
My mother got divorced when I was like 13, and so she was a single parent to 4 girls, and she was a nurse, so she worked the night shift in the intensive care unit. So mentally, she had to be brilliant. Emotionally, she had to be strong, and her mother was like that. I tell you, just the lineage of women in my family has been unbelievably strong. It's just strong.
She sees this strength in her daughters, too.
I never wanted them to think that they were lesser than. Like, I remember I took off on a trip to India, and I was like, I have to teach them that you have to do what you have to do. as a woman. You can't just say, no, I have to stay home and bake bread. So yeah, a lot of really strong women. And my oldest daughter, she works for Google, and she in 4 years has got herself from an entry-level position to a management position. And my other daughter, Amalia, is more artistic, more like walk barefoot in the woods. And they're completely opposite in many ways. But this part of following your inner call is there. And I see myself in both of them. It's pretty fulfilling.
Seeing herself in her daughters has given Joan some perspective on her losses.
What we do doesn't define us ultimately. Like people used to say, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a teacher. Well, that doesn't really define me. I mean, that tells you something I do. So it's a process.
Yeah, that's a major shift.
Mm-hmm. And there's also that someone might need me. What if my daughter needs me that day? What if my friends need me that day and I'm in bed feeling sorry for myself, you know?
Mm.
I need to be vulnerable. I'm at a place where this protecting myself from vulnerability is not serving me well, but it's hard to be vulnerable, I think.
Yeah.
Especially when you're protecting yourself all the time.
I love what Joan said next.
I don't think everything's going to come back. Even if my voice comes back, it's now, it's not then. And I'm willing, okay, I'm going to say this out loud. I'm willing to accept that the future is going to be different than the past. Even if I'm still, holding on, I'm willing in this moment to say that.
This word willing, you're willing to say that. You're actually willing yourself to say that. What does it take from you to will yourself to say that?
Complete honesty with myself.
And haven't you been honest with yourself about that until now?
I fight it a lot.
Hmm.
No, I want it back the way it was. I want to sing with that choir and I want to do all those things, but I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
Like, what if I was willing to accept that? I am willing to accept that.
Yeah.
I came to that place, that's actually not possible.
Was that scary? Was it heartbreaking? Where were you emotionally in that?
The willingness came at the end, and it's an exhausted place.
Yeah.
Like I'm exhausted from the emotion, and that's clear. Now it's clear that we're willing. You sort of like clear the smoke, clear the gup, clear the trigger, and see that, I don't know if humbling's the right word, but it's acceptance, at least like that much. Not that much, but that much. Surrender in a way. Okay. I'm willing to surrender that dream or that the past or what I think should come back.
I have a lot of respect for the way you're approaching this and your resilience and your hard work and all that you have to say about it.
Thank you.
I find it uniquely easy to share a silence with Joan. She's comfortable in silence, and that's a gift she shares with me when a silence comes into our conversation.
I firmly believe and experience that silence is the language of God. And in that expanse is the music I haven't written yet. It's there. And I feel like you have to know that space.
Me?
In your own writing. You have to know that you're a channel. Those words are there. And suddenly, I don't know what your process is, but it's there. Where was it before?
Where was it before?
In this nothing. That's everything, because you listened.
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought of it quite that way.
I see Joan's point, but I also don't. Silence, for me, is not a source. It's just a place where I go to let the noises of the world subside. In the silence, those noises are sorting themselves out, and the resonant bits are rising to the surface. Where was it before?
I'm right now locating the words that I'm listening to in you, Joan. You're the source, not the silence. This dialogue between us is the source. It's right there.
Right. Oh, that's great. I got chills when you said that.
Did you get chills?
Wow.
You aren't aware of it, but when you tell a story, you employ all kinds of metaphors. Some of them are hidden in the very structure of the language. Others are more obvious. You aren't conscious of it, but you're making poetry of your daily life all the time. Joan's story is so loaded with metaphors, all I have to do is pick a few of the sturdiest ones and lean into those. There's a poem in that. I'm Todd Boss. The first poem I wrote for Joan felt narrow. It only touched on a couple of aspects of her life. I felt like writing her a companion poem to go with it. So I did that. And that poem also seemed narrow. And then it occurred to me, I could write 3.
You have 3?
I have one for each of the boys that you lost.
Oh, wow. Did you plan that?
It just sort of happened. I wrote one, and then another one started occurring to me, and then I thought, wow, I might have a third, and that felt right.
Wow.
I love it when some serendipitous bit of conversation sparks a poem. In this case, it was that moment when Joan opened one of our conversations by saying that she'd been triggered by my use of the word failure, that she'd reconsidered her use of the word atrophy to describe the loss of her voice. Atrophy looks on the page like a trophy. I wrote that down. But what would I give Joan a trophy for?
So, Joan, I'm going to send you this. It's called a trophy. So let me know when you have it.
I got it.
You got that?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll read it aloud. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A trophy, Grammy sleek, sings its glimmer into the limelight behind the podium, where you lift it to your bosom as applause and folds you like a mink. And in that pause, you think of your mother, how still she buoys you here, past worry, past all fear of failure. And your speech is good, and there's a wild party after. But not till you're home will you finger what's graved there. Your name, and then winner. Best laughter.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm crying because I won the Best Laughter Award.
Congratulations.
Wow.
I love your laughter, Joan. I think I've said that before. It really is the best. And, it's amazing to me that you can laugh after all you've been through, and that is a real source of strength, I think, and worthy of recognition. So that's me behind the podium handing you that trophy.
Oh, I'm kind of speechless, really. You read it again.
A trophy, Grammy sleek, sings its glimmer into the limelight behind the podium, where you lift it to your bosom as applause enfolds you like a mink. And in that pause, you think of your mother, how still she buoys you here, past worry, past all fear of failure. And your speech is good, and there's a wild party after. But not till you're home will you finger what's graved there, your name, and then winner, best laughter.
God, this meant so much to me. I don't think you have any idea.
If you think there's a poem in your story, leave me a voicemail on our Haiku Hawaii listener line, 808-300-0449. That's 808-300-0449.
It's been life transforming and affirming and fun and serious and the whole gamut.
You can see photos of Joan, her daughters, her performances, plus read all 3 poems I wrote for her and her responses to them at our website, poeminthat.com.
I think you're an extraordinary human being.
I think you're an extraordinary human being, Joan.
There's a Poem in That is written and produced by me, Todd Boss, and co-producer Bronwyn Clark, with support from executive producer Hila Plitman and executive assistant Mallory Capri Hansen. Audio support from Ben O'Brien. Original music by Esh Whitaker. Special thanks to associate producers Susan and Ralph Duncan, Joan Johnson-Drews, Rena Wells, Uzi and Esty Plitman, and the 51 other Kickstarter backers who made this launch episode possible.
I have a trophy.